I could post it. Okay, so when you open Premiere, you can do it through the applications. That's always the easiest way for me. Maybe that's just because what I'm used to. I think this Launchpad has it on there too. Premiere Pro looks like there's 2024 downloaded here. There is 2025. They might just be in the process of updating it. Usually that comes out in like November or something. So when you're working with Premiere Pro, it's very similar to other Adobe programs, except the one thing that you need is you need your bin, okay? And basically what I do for a bin is I just bring up a Finder window here. And what I want to do in this bin is actually just create a folder that I'm going to pull everything from. Because something that you need to know is, have you guys ever done place embedded or place linked in Photoshop? Do you know what I mean by that? I'm not sure the keyboard shortcut of it, but that would be, it's pulling in another file into your Photoshop. If you do embedded, it takes whatever that file is and brings it in, brings a version of it into it. If you do linked, it's always going to connect to that. So if I change that through another program, it's going to bring in that linked one. Okay, so everything in Premiere is kind of going to be linked. What's important about that is knowing that the pathway to there has to stay the same or it will break the pathway. So right now I have my pathway. If you're not too familiar with this, it's just the drive and then desktop, and now the folder is face animation. Okay, before I go ahead and do anything, I want to set my folder up so it's going to be the best in terms of conduciveness to my project. So normally what I would do is inside of this folder, I would put all my stuff together in a folder and label it something like this. Okay, the reason why is because I want to make sure that all of my graphics are together just for organizational purposes. In video production, I will normally have two other ones. I usually do this, and keep forgetting there's no right mouse. Okay, just making 3 folders that different things would be in to make sure that all my files are organized. Okay, and this is all going to be important here in a second. So you want to make sure before you do anything in Premiere that your pathways are set, that your pictures are done, that your video is done, that your audio is done, anything like that. So then when you create them and import them into Premiere, it knows exactly where to look and you don't have to worry about broken links. So that's done through there. Now let's get back into Premiere. And in Premiere, we have this is our normal, just our landing screen, I guess. And normally we're going to want to just go ahead and create a new project. Once you already have your project, you would just go to open project and navigate to where it is, obviously. But here we're just going to go to new project. Okay, so sorry about that little mistake. In class, we took 10 minutes trying to figure out how to move this out from behind the little bar here. But this is going to be Premiere Pro 25 because this is what I have here on my computer. When it comes up, all these options that you had in 24 are going to appear right here. So I'm going to go ahead and just choose the location where I actually have my face animation stuff. And then I'm going to go ahead and label it here. This will pop up, this screen here, and this is just the bottom half of what you guys were seeing. The name and the location was appearing here at the top, but it is not here. If you have 2025, you can go ahead and just skip this part right here. And here is how Premiere Pro is going to look once it's open. Now, if yours does not look like this, you can go to Window, Workspaces, and then click on Essentials. And what that's going to do is it's going to set it up similar to how we're looking here. So to give you a quick overview of what we're looking at, up top here is your project browser. The project browser is going to be where you can import all your files and where all your stuff that's going to build your video is going to appear. In the middle here is your program source monitor. Your program you can think of as your output. That's going to be what happens after all your edits and composition happens. And your source is going to show you what exactly you're putting into it. It all makes sense in a little bit. Up top in here in the right corner is your effects panel. You'll see that there's effect controls. Lumetri color is what we call color grading. Graphics you could add, text, sound, other things like that are all going to be up here. For our purposes, we're not going to use this very much, so I'm going to go ahead and just slide that over, make our program bigger. Down here is going to be two options. It's going to be our tools, and then it's also going to be our timeline, which is where we're going to put our sequence in. So keep that in mind of what we're going to be doing here with our sequence, but we don't have anything to add to that just yet. So there's two ways to go about doing this. If you're on 24, you're not going to have this import media button. If you're on 25, you will have that. And when you click on it, it's going to bring up a file browser here, like a Windows browser, and then you're going to be able to add things to it. However, when we set this up, we set up our folder this way. So what we can do is I can just shift click all three of these folders that I have, and then I'm going to drag them into the project browser over here. And when I release them, you'll see that they do appear in there. There's a couple different views you could have. There's list view, which is how it's viewed right here. It's sorted by frame rate. Let's sort it by name. And then there's icon view, which I click that. It's going to give me a little bit of a preview of things. Now, these are just folders, and you can see that there's only one thing in audio, nothing in video, and 12 in graphics. But if I go ahead and click on graphics, now we can see the changes because it's going to show me my graphics here as an icon. Or I prefer to look at it in list view, and it just shows me more on the screen. So inside of here, let's go back to list view. What we're going to want to do is we're going to want to bring things down into our sequence, which is going to be right here. And that's going to create a sequence the first time we bring something down. And when we look at the sequence, it's going to be visible in our program monitor, which is up here. So let's go ahead and I'll pull down my graphics, and I'm going to use this face image right here, which is my background or where I have my staging happen. So I'm going to drag this down into here by clicking and holding and releasing. And now you see that this timeline has been created the timeline has created a sequence, sorry. And what it had done is it put in the face image, which is right here, this little purple block. A couple things we have to know about this is we have the playhead, which is here, and you can click on that and just slide it around. The playhead is going to be where in time the program is playing. So as of right now, it's a still image. So if I were to play this, nothing's going to happen. But you see that the playhead does move based off the time that we have. So in order to tell Premiere what kind of time code we're looking at, we need to make sure that we're clicked down here in the timeline. See how it's highlighted in blue? If we're clicked up here, this is going to be highlighted in blue. Over here, this is highlighted, different boxes. We need to make sure that we're clicked inside of our sequence, not even the tools here, the sequence. Go up to sequence up top and click sequence settings. In sequence settings, there's a couple things in here that you can change. However, for us in animation, all we really care about is time base. Time base is going to be how much editing we are going to do and how many frames are going to appear per second. Usually Premiere Pro will default at this 29.9, but we want to go ahead and change this to 12. So these options here, there's video. You can see the sizing. This is just because that's how I exported my Illustrator file. In audio, there's different sample rates of audio. Video previews go through ProRes, Apple ProRes. There's H.264 sometimes used, but on Apple computers, we usually stick here. And you don't have to change any of this for this project. So I'm going to click OK, and you'll notice that these are now frames that have spread out even more. So this blue line here, this is showing what you're seeing right now in the program monitor, and how this little indicator line is jumping up and down because that's one frame. Each one of these is going to be one frame. So how do we navigate frame by frame? Well, number one, we have to look at this here. This is called the playhead position or the time code. The time code is going to be, I'll put something in here. It's going to be split into hours, minutes, seconds, and then frames. Okay, so hours right now is 0. Minutes is 0. Seconds is also 0. And frames is at 6. So this is at the 6th frame without any seconds, without any minutes, without any hours. So in order to understand this, basically what I can do is I can navigate up and down. So if I go ahead and click on this, I can change this now to whatever I want. Let's go to frame 1 second and then 9 frames. So it should take us right to about here. It'll move the playhead. Let me hit enter. And so it moved us to 1 second and 9 frames. And that's how you would type that in. Now, if I go ahead and do more than 12 frames, remember there's 12 frames per second. So if I put 18 frames in here, it's not going to actually cause any issue. It will take me to the 18th frame, but we have to understand what the 18th frame is in this time code. The 18th frame is at 1 second, which is equal to 12 frames, and then 6 frames. So 12 frames plus 6 frames. So it should take us right here. If I hit enter, it does. It takes us to 1 minute, or 1 second, I'm sorry, and 6 frames. Now this works all the way down. So if I just type a random number in here, what it's doing is it's taking the last number, so 5 and 4, and it's going to the 45th frame at the 45th second, which we know there's only 12 frames per second, so this should put us somewhere around 48 seconds. And when I hit enter, 48 seconds and 9 frames. So that's important to know as we're navigating through this, is that hours, minutes, seconds, frames, and then depending on how many frames per second we tell it, that's going to be determining how many seconds are in there. Now, minutes are always going to be determined by 60 seconds, and hours are always going to be determined by 60 minutes. So the only thing that's going to be different is right here at this very end, it's going to be how many frames determine each second. Okay, so let's get rid of that. Let's move down here again. What we want to see here is this in the time line, in the sequence here, works very similar to how Adobe Illustrator and Adobe Photoshop work. This bar right here in the middle is going to be the bar that separates the video files, which go up, from the audio files, which go down. Video files are indicated by V1, audio files are indicated by A1, and so on and so forth. The time code will only play the first thing that it touches. So let's go ahead and add another face in here. If we're looking down from here, the time code is hitting this face at this particular moment. It's not seeing this face. Now, in order to see that a little bit more clear, I'm just going to go ahead and change the motion here, the position. Okay, and we see the one that I was clicked on that I had moved up here by just adjusting the position. Don't worry about any of these effects just yet. But the one that I clicked on that moved is overlapping on the one that's behind it. Why? Because the time code is kind of like a waterfall. The first thing that it hits is what you're going to see. Even though this, we're still seeing some of it, we're not seeing whatever is behind here because this is an opaque image. So what we want to do is, using that knowledge, we want to go ahead and start adding our mouths onto this. So if I add my mouth here, you'll see that my rest position appears right at the exact spot because of how I exported this by exporting using the artboard. I could add more images to this, different mouths, but then they're overlapping, and you can kind of see that the rest mouth is still being visible in there. So that's not exactly how we want to do this. What we want to do is we want to change how long these last. So let's rest for half a second. So that's 6 frames. So let's go to 6, hit enter, and it's going to move our playhead to 6. And now we want to go ahead and stop the rest because we're going to add something else here. So there's a couple ways we can do that. Let's go over to our tools. 2 tools that we're going to use here are the selection tool, which is keyboard shortcut V, and the razor tool, which is keyboard shortcut C. So if I'm on the selection tool, which is going to be the tool that you use, I would say 90% of the time, what we can do is we can go to the very end of here, and you see my cursor changes to this red arrow with the square bracket. As long as I'm in that icon, I can click and start dragging this over. And you see how it's kind of jumping? Because you can't actually split a frame. Watch it go from this frame now to here. It's jumping per frame. So you can't actually have any half frames. So I'm going to jump it all the way to the playhead, and it snaps. So it'll line up right at the playhead where I want it to line up. And now we know for half a second or 6 frames, the rest is going to be there. Once we hit that final frame, the rest is gone. So we could do it that way. Or another way that we can do it, if it's still this length, is by using the razor tool, which is keyboard shortcut C. So keyboard with the razor tool, we can again go to 6 frames. Whoops, I pushed the wrong button here. We can go to 6 frames here. And now with the razor tool, you'll see that there's this indicator line. I can go right to my playhead and click that. And what that did was it cut the footage from here in this portion and this portion. So now I will switch to the selection tool with V, click on the second portion, which I don't need, and then just delete it. Now this is non-destructive, so I could always just drag and add that back if I wanted to. Non-destructive editing is very important in Premiere Pro because if you do lose some footage, you don't want to not be able to get it again because you can't really create it again. So now that we have rest, what we're going to do is we're going to look for audio. So I have my son here saying a bunch of stuff in audio, and we're going to start it somewhere.
Gave me an idea, but I don't think it's true. Dad, I don't think this.
We'll start with Dad.
Dad.
Okay, so I'm just going to grab that. Don't worry about how I'm grabbing it. What I want you to do with your video is inside your whole video, underneath, you're going to see this drag video or drag audio only. Now, we don't need the video here because we're going to animate that. We're just going to go ahead and drag the audio down here. And right about at the rest sign is we'll see where he says the word dad. So I dragged it right here to where I'm going to have the rest ends. And if I click down here now and hit play, okay, so it looks like he's saying dad right about here. So I'm just going to squeeze that over, line that up with the rest here. Okay, so right there he's saying dad. And I'm going to go ahead and grab my consonant. And now what I'm listening for is when his tone change goes from da to ah. So right there, he's saying ah. So pretty much on this frame. So what I need to do is I could go back and shrink the d sound and add the ah sound. Okay, and then that's probably only going to be for 1 frame. And then I'm going to go ahead and add the d sound again. Maybe like that. Let's see how that looks. So he's going to go from rest, and then he's going to say dad, and let's see how that lines up. Okay? Maybe. I think it's actually a little bit too late, so I'm going to shrink that. I'm going to move the A. It sounds like he says ah. More of the dad pronounces the ah. Okay? You see that? Okay, so then basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to continue this. Now, these are images, so they don't have a specific time. Now, if I recorded a video for 30 seconds, that's all I would have. But images can be on the screen for an indefinite amount of time. So I can just go to the very edge here and just stretch this out for as long as I want. So now I'll have the background here. And then basically this image will be here and I'll just have to fill in all the different mouth movements. One thing I didn't really go over in class that I was just thinking about now is how you actually shrink and zoom into this because it's a little bit difficult to navigate. You'll see these little circles here on the side, and then there's also one down here at the bottom. These are basically your navigation sliders. The closer they are together, the more zoomed in you're going to be. Okay, this is the vertical zoom. Okay, and then here is the horizontal zoom. See how when we move further away, we're actually zooming out. Can't even see what I'm doing anymore. If I want to really get in close, I would want them to be pretty close together. Then I can slide the bar to move over in the time code, or here I could slide the bar to move up if I needed to. And the same thing does work with audio as well as the video here. But that's pretty much how you're going to navigate there. It's not you can't hold shift because when you hit, or not shift, you can't hold spacebar because when you hit spacebar, it plays your video. So it actually gives a little bit of a, it doesn't work like Illustrator would where you can hold spacebar and get the hand tool so you can move around. But that's just how you would navigate Premiere's timeline down here. So I'm going to speed this up, and what I'm going to do is go ahead and finish out whatever the heck he's saying here, and then we'll see how it looks at the end. Okay, so I think this is now done. Let's go ahead and take a look at this. I did a little bit extra just because I have no idea what he was talking about. But if we go ahead and watch it, watch the mouth movements and see if you weren't listening to this, if you can kind of pick up what he's saying.
Dad, I don't think this thing is true, but I think it is true.
What?
I don't think it's true, but it is true. Well, I don't think it's true, but it is. I don't think it's true, but I do think it's true.
So after you get all your stuff in and then you just play it back, everything should play through pretty smoothly. And when they go through little frames like this that are only 1 frame long, it kind of gives that look that it's transitioning from one frame to the next, and the mouth is moving from that to that E or whatever this position is. You'll notice that some of them are longer than the others. If I zoom in here, a lot of times you'll have rest in here when he's not talking. And then these quick ones are because he is talking kind of quick. And then here it extends out for a little bit longer. So if we just watch this section.
Well, I don't think it's true.
Okay, see that ooh at the end? I don't think it's true. And then he kind of goes into rest. So the mouth kind of lingers here, which is why this is going to be 2 frames instead of 1.
Well, I don't think it's true, but...
Okay, and then it goes into rest because he closes his mouth and getting ready to use the word buh. And he gets into, but I do think it's whatever.
I don't think it's true, but it is. I don't think it's true.
That's another thing that you can do as well, too, is sometimes, if you're animating here, see, it wasn't like he was reading off of a script. His brain is moving faster than his mouth. So when he's talking here, he kind of stops and almost stutters here. And you can animate that with the same noises that you have. It sounded like he was making a ch or sh kind of sound. So I just added that little, instead of the rest, I added that in here.
But it is. I don't think it's true.
Okay. So, that's how you would do that, and you would get everything ready to go. When you're finally done, make sure you're clicked inside your sequence, so your sequence is highlighted. If you come up to the top and hit export, it's going to give you all different kinds of options here. Once again, this is a lot of stuff for Premiere, but it's actually not too bad if you just go through it really quickly. So up top is the file name. So I'm going to go ahead and call this whatever I want. And then you would click on this blue line here. And basically, this is where you're going to be able to pick where you want to save it. So if I could save it to face animation, I'll just save it right in here. I'll hit save. Now, before you do anything, if yours is not at 1080p, it's going to probably default to that, the preset here. If yours is not or any different size, you can look down here. It says video and it shows the size. That's what size it's going to export to. If I go ahead and click video here, I can always click match source. And if mine's not 1080p, then it's going to change it to whatever size I had. Let's say I did this at 4000 by 3000 pixels. As long as I click match source, it's going to trim it properly how I want it to be and not give me any black bars on the top or the bottom. So now that it's going to the folder that I want, once I click export, it takes a few seconds to export. And if I open up my folder here, you have your MP4.
Dad, I don't think this thing is true, but I think it is true.
What?
I don't think it's true, but it is true. Well, I don't think it's true, but it is. I don't think it's true, but I do think it's true.
So there you go. So exporting, opening Premiere to animating to exporting. Hopefully this does help you. I know it's kind of long, but when I edit this video, I'll try to make it short. If not, I'll see you guys tomorrow.